The world they found had no name. To Ryan, Halle, and Lyra, it was simply home. Green forests stretched as far as they could see. Rivers ran silver under two suns. At night, the sky glowed with blue stars that moved like slow-breathing creatures. The air smelled of wet soil and freedom. For the first few weeks, they lived like ghosts. They built a small shelter from the ship's broken metal. Ryan hunted small beasts. Lyra grew pale fruits that sparkled under sunlight. They spoke little, slept close, and listened to the wind that sounded almost like a song. Then one night, when thunder rolled beyond the hills, Lyra screamed. Ryan ran inside the hut. She was on the floor, clutching her stomach. Her breath came fast, sweat shining on her skin. "It's time," she gasped. Ryan froze. He had fought wars, killed men, faced death 100 times, but this terrified him. "I don't know what to do," he shouted. Lyra laughed through pain. "You're a soldier, Ryan. You always figure it out." Hours passed like years. The sky outside burned red with dawn. Then a cry filled the air. Thin, sharp, alive. A child. Ryan lifted the small creature in trembling hands. She was tiny, glowing faintly with violet light. Human eyes, tree markings, soft silver hair. The most perfect thing he had ever seen. Lyra smiled weakly. "She's beautiful." Ryan nodded, his throat tight. "Yeah, she is. What will you call her?" Lyra asked. He looked at the rising sun. "Hope," he said, "because she's the first thing that makes me believe again." Months passed. Hope grew quickly. She laughed at everything, at rain, at birds, even at Ryan's beard when it scratched her cheek. Lyra taught her to speak both human and tree words. Ryan taught her to climb trees and throw stones straight. Life became simple, peaceful, but peace never lasts. One afternoon, Ryan noticed a flicker in the sky, a metal flash that didn't belong to clouds. His blood ran cold. He grabbed his old scanner. The signal blinked red. "Incoming ship." "Human Federation code." Lyra stepped beside him, holding Hope. "They found us," she whispered. Ryan's jaw tightened. "I'll make sure they don't take you." "Ryan," Lyra said softly, "you can't fight them all." He looked at her. "I can try." That night, they sat together outside the hut. Hope slept between them, wrapped in Ryan's old jacket. The stars glimmered silently above. Lyra took a deep breath. "If something happens," she said, "promise me one thing." "What?" "Promise me you'll protect her. No matter what." Ryan turned to her. "We'll protect her. Both of us." Lyra smiled sadly. "That's not what I meant." He reached out, holding her hand tightly. "Don't talk like that. We'll survive. We always do." She didn't argue, but in her eyes, he saw she already knew. That morning came with fire. The sky split open as a Federation dropship roared through the clouds. Dust exploded around the valley. Ryan pushed Lyra and Hope toward the cave behind the hill. "Stay there," he shouted. "Don't move until I come back." Lyra caught his arm. "Ryan," he kissed her quickly. "I'll be fine." Then he ran. The soldiers came in silver armor, their faces hidden behind mirrored helmets. They spread across the clearing with rifles raised. Ryan stepped out of the shadows, rifle in hand. "There's no one here but me," he said. "You're wasting your time." The lead officer's voice echoed through his helmet. "Commander Halle, you're under arrest for treason and genetic violation. Surrender the Treen female and the hybrid child." Ryan raised his weapon. "You'll have to kill me first." "So be it." The first shot cracked through the air. Ryan rolled behind a fallen trunk, returning fire. Plasma bolts cut through smoke and leaves. The ground shook. He fought like the soldier he once was. Every movement clean, every breath controlled. But there were too many. He was hit in the shoulder, fell, got up again. His vision blurred. But he didn't stop Dot until a scream broke through the chaos. "Ryan!" Lyra. She was running toward him, energy glowing from her hands, the old Treen power. The one her people once used to bend metal and light. Blue fire erupted around her, forming a shield that threw soldiers back. Ryan stared in disbelief. "Lyra, no!" She turned to him, smiling through tears. "Now I save you again." She raised both hands. The light grew blinding. A wave of energy burst out, throwing everything into silence. When Ryan opened his eyes, the battlefield was gone. The soldiers lay scattered, their weapons melted. Smoke drifted across the clearing. He crawled to Lyra. She was lying on the ground, barely breathing, the light fading from her skin. "Lyra," he whispered, shaking her gently. "Stay with me." Her eyes fluttered open. "Did we win?" He laughed weakly, tears mixing with dirt. "Yeah, we won." She smiled faintly. "Then it's okay." "No, it's not," he said. "You're going to be fine. We'll fix this. She touched his lips with her fingers. "Promise me," she whispered, "you'll tell her who I was. Tell her I wasn't a slave. I was free." Ryan's voice broke. "You were more than that. You were everything." Lyra's hand slipped from his cheek. Her eyes stayed open, still looking at him, still full of light. Dot, and then she was gone. The world fell silent. Ryan buried her beneath a tall silver tree by the river. He placed her old necklace on the grave, a small crystal that caught the light and turned it blue. Hope stood beside him, holding his hand. "Where did Mama go?" she asked softly. Ryan swallowed hard. "She went to the stars." The little girl looked up. "Will she come back?" He forced a smile. "She never really left." Hope looked at the sky, then pointed. "That one," she said, choosing the brightest star. "That's Mama." Ryan nodded. "Yeah, that's her." Years passed. The Federation never returned. Maybe they believed the planet uninhabited after the battle. Maybe they feared what they couldn't understand. Either way, Ryan and Hope lived on. Dot. She grew fast, faster than a human child, smarter than either race could explain. She built machines from old ship parts, healed wounds with a touch, and spoke to animals as if they understood her. Ryan saw Lyra in her every smile, every spark of defiance. Sometimes at night, Hope would climb to the top of the hill and whisper to the stars. Ryan never asked what she said. He knew she was talking to her mother. One evening, as the sun set and the world turned gold, Hope sat beside Ryan by the fire. She was nearly grown now, her silver hair glowing in the dusk. "Dad," she said softly, "why do you still wear that old ring?" Ryan looked down at his hand. The simple metal band had once belonged to his uniform, a symbol of duty. Now it meant something else, because it reminds me that love is a promise, he said. Not a law, not a rule, just a choice we keep making. Hope smiled. "Is that what you chose when you saved Mom?" He nodded. "Yes, and every day since." She looked up at the stars, her eyes shining. "Then maybe it's my turn to choose." Ryan frowned. "What do you mean?" "I can feel them," she said quietly. "Out there. Others like me, scared, hiding, half human, half something else. They need a home." Ryan's heart ached. "Hope," she stood, taller now, older somehow. "You and Mom gave me life," she said. "Now I have to give it meaning." He wanted to stop her, but when he saw the light in her eyes, the same light Lyra once had, he couldn't. He smiled through tears. "Then go. Show them what we fought for." Hope hugged him tightly. "I love you, Dad. I love you too, kiddo." She stepped back, lifted her hand, and the air around her shimmered. Energy swirled, blue and white. A small craft, built from the old wreck, rose behind her. She climbed inside, looked down at him one last time and whispered, "Goodbye." The ship rose into the sky, turning toward the stars, toward her mother. Ryan watched until it disappeared into the night. Then he sat by the fire, looking at the ring on his hand and the star above the tree. He smiled. "'Cause she really is yours, Lyra," he said softly. "She got your fire." The wind moved through the trees, gentle and warm, almost like a whisper in reply. And somewhere beyond the stars, in the endless dark between worlds, the story of a human and an alien woman, the soldier and the slave who became free, began to spread again, a story told in every tongue, in every world that still believed in love. The story of 6 simple words. You paid for me. Now do it. The night was dark, cold, and heavy with rain. The sky over the colony world of HFY was filled with low clouds, and thunder rolled like a giant growling in the distance. The streets were almost empty. No one wanted to be outside on a night like this, except Evan Cole, a human engineer who had been driving back from a long shift at the mining station. His small ground truck moved slowly through the muddy road. The windshield wipers fought the rain, but the glass was still blurry. He leaned closer to see through it, tired eyes staring into the endless darkness. It had been a long day. The machines had broken again, and his supervisor shouted more than usual. Life on HFY was hard dust, cold nights, and silence. The only good thing about his job was that it kept him far from everything he wanted to forget. As he drove past the last row of old buildings, his lights caught something strange. Something standing by the side of the road. At first, he thought it was a signboard, just another rusted metal pole. But when he slowed down, his stomach tightened. There was something tied to that pole. Something small. Something that moved. He stopped the truck and opened the door. The cold rain hit his face like needles. His boots sank into the wet mud as he walked closer. The headlights shone directly on the figure. It was a girl, not a human girl. Her skin had a faint blue glow, and her hair shimmered silver under the rain. She was tied to the signpost with thick wire cutting into her wrists. Around her neck hung a cardboard sign, soaked and torn by the rain. The words were ugly, written in dripping black paint. "Take her for a bottle of liquor." Evan froze. For a moment, he couldn't even breathe. He looked around, half expecting someone to jump out laughing, some cruel joke played by the local miners. But there was no one. Only the rain and the lonely whisper of the wind. The girl's head was bowed low. Her breathing was shallow. Her small body trembled. She looked so weak, like she had been standing there for hours. Hey, can you hear me?" Evan said softly, stepping closer. She didn't answer. Her eyes were half open, glowing faintly like dying stars. Her lips moved, but no sound came. Evan's heart pounded. He didn't care who she was or what kind of creature she came from. No one deserved this. He pulled his knife from his belt and started cutting the wire. The sharp metal had dug deep into her wrists. When it came loose, she nearly fell. He caught her before she hit the ground. "Easy. I got you," he whispered, holding her close. Her body was freezing cold, lighter than he expected, like she weighed almost nothing. Her clothes were torn, covered in mud. Her bare feet were bleeding. He took off his jacket and wrapped it around her small frame. He looked again at the sign, anger rising in his chest. Who could do something like this? Sell a child for liquor? The rain hit harder. He knew he couldn't stay there. He lifted her carefully in his arms and carried her to the truck. Inside, he laid her on the passenger seat, turning up the heater. Her eyes opened for a moment, and she looked at him. Those eyes were bright silver, strange and beautiful. For a second, it felt like she was looking through him, not at him. "It's okay," he said. "You're safe now." She blinked once, then whispered something in a soft musical voice. It wasn't English. It sounded alien like wind over glass. He didn't understand. But the sadness in her voice made his throat tighten. He drove fast toward his cabin on the edge of the valley. The rain followed, and thunder cracked again in the distance. Every few seconds, he looked at her to make sure she was still breathing. When they reached his home, a small cabin built from scrap metal and wood, he carried her inside and placed her on his couch. The lights flickered once as he entered, but he ignored it. He grabbed a blanket and covered her, then started the heater. Evan had lived alone for years. He wasn't used to company, much less a strange alien girl who looked half dead. But something deep inside told him he had done the right thing. He went to the kitchen, heated some water, and brought it to clean her wounds. When he removed the blanket to check her arms, he noticed something strange. Her skin wasn't just blue, it shimmered faintly with lines of silver, like thin veins of light under the surface. When he touched her wrist, a spark jumped between his fingers. He jerked back in surprise. "What the hell?" He murmured. Her eyes opened again, glowing brighter now. She stared at him, frightened. He raised his hands slowly. "It's okay. I won't hurt you." She stared for a moment longer, then whispered one word again in her strange language. Her voice was soft, almost mechanical, but sad. He shook his head. "I don't understand." She closed her eyes again, whispering something like a name. "Lyra." "Lyra?" he repeated. "Is that your name?" No answer. She had already passed out. Evan sighed and leaned back in his chair. The rain outside had stopped, but his mind was racing. He should report this to the colony authorities, but they wouldn't care. They never did. Out here, aliens were just merchandise to many people. He looked at the sign again. "Take her for a bottle of liquor." The words burned in his mind. He decided then he wasn't calling anyone. Whoever left her there didn't deserve to find her again. He sat beside her, watching the slow rise and fall of her chest. He wondered who she was, where she came from, and what she had suffered. Then something strange happened. The lights in the cabin flickered again. His computer terminal, which had been off, suddenly powered on by itself. Lines of alien text filled the screen symbols he had never seen before. The heater made a loud hum, and the radio began to pick up static. The girl's body started glowing softly, the same light running through her veins. The symbols on his screen changed rapidly until they formed one clear line in English. Energy transfer initiated. Evan jumped to his feet. "What the—" The air around her shimmered, the light growing stronger. His tools began vibrating on the table. The blanket lifted slightly, as if pulled by invisible hands. Then, as suddenly as it started, everything stopped. The lights went out. The glow faded. The cabin fell silent again, except for the sound of his own breathing. He rushed to her side. Her skin was still glowing faintly, but her pulse had returned steady and warm now. Evan sat beside her, unsure whether to be relieved or terrified. What was she? A runaway experiment? A living machine? Outside, the storm passed, leaving behind the smell of wet earth. Inside, the human man watched the sleeping alien girl. Her name Lyra echoing in his mind. He didn't know it yet. But this night would change everything. He looked again at the glowing veins on her arm and whispered, "Who are you, Lyra?" But she didn't answer. And somewhere far away, in the dark sky above Aranfor, a signal blinked on a red light. Searching, tracking, waiting. Someone, or something, knew she was still alive. The morning came slow and gray. The storm had passed, but the air outside still smelled like wet iron. Inside the cabin, Evan Cole sat quietly, watching the strange alien girl sleep on his couch. She looked peaceful now, almost human, except for the faint silver lines glowing under her blue skin. They pulsed like light moving through clear water, gentle but alive. Her name, Lyra, echoed in his head again and again. He didn't know why he cared so much. He had found her tied to a metal pole with a cruel sign around her neck. And now she was lying in his home like some kind of mystery dropped from the stars. Evan rubbed his eyes and stood up. He made himself a cup of synthetic coffee and sat by the small computer terminal that had gone crazy last night. The screen was black now, but the memory logs were full of alien code symbols that changed shape when he tried to read them. He tried to copy the data, but his system froze and restarted on its own. When the screen lit again, a small box appeared with a message written in clear English. Unit 17 located. Containment team dispatched. Evan's heart stopped for a second. Containment team? Who were they? And what did Unit 17 mean? He looked at Lyra again. She didn't seem like a weapon or machine. She looked fragile, like someone who had been hurt too many times. He sat down beside her and checked her pulse again. It was steady. The silver light under her skin brightened slightly as he touched her wrist. Then his medical scanner, lying on the table, turned on by itself and began running a scan without his command. The results appeared in flashing text. Hybrid organism. Synthetic organic fusion. DNA unknown. Warning, neural network linked to external systems. Evan frowned. You're connected to something? Lyra's eyes opened suddenly. The silver glow in her pupils brightened, and for the first time she spoke in English slowly, softly, as if learning the words. Don't touch the signal, she said. Evan froze. You can speak English? She blinked. Learning from you. Your system teaches me. He looked at the computer, then back at her. What are you? She sat up weakly, pulling the blanket around her shoulders. They called me Unit 17. Property of the Rogan Syndicate. Evan's jaw tightened. The Rogan Syndicate. He had heard that name before. A group of illegal traders, humans and aliens who sold advanced tech, weapons, and sometimes living beings. He said quietly, They tied you there. Didn't they? Lyra's eyes lowered. They took my sister. They wanted me to obey. But I refused. Her hands trembled. They said no one would take me, even for liquor. Evan felt a deep anger rising inside him, the kind that made his chest feel heavy. He took a deep breath and said, You're safe here, Lyra. They won't find you. But Lyra shook her head slowly. They already know. You brought me inside. They can track my blood. It carries a signal. Evan turned to his terminal. The message still blinked. Containment team dispatched. He whispered, Damn. Before he could ask more, the cabin lights flickered again. Outside, something moved in the fog, metal shapes gliding through the air. Lyra's silver veins brightened. They're here. Evan grabbed his plasma rifle from the wall and looked out the window. 3 black ships hovered above the valley, small, fast, built for hunting. Stay here, he said. Lyra stood up weakly. No, you can't fight them alone. Evan checked his weapon's charge. I'm not letting them take you again. Outside, the hum of engines grew louder. The ships lowered closer, lights sweeping across the ground. One of them sent a burst of static across his comm system. Then a voice spoke through the radio, cold and mechanical. This is Rogan Containment Unit. Step outside, human. Return the asset and you will not be harmed. Evan looked at Lyra. They mean you. She nodded, her expression full of fear. If they take me, they'll use me to destroy others. Evan clenched his jaw. Then they're not taking you. The door shook as something heavy slammed against it. Dust fell from the ceiling. Lyra backed away, clutching her blanket. Stay down, Evan said. He crouched near the window, aimed, and fired. The blue plasma blast hit the first figure that tried to enter. The armor melted instantly, and the man fell backward into the mud. 2 more came forward, firing pulse rounds. The cabin wall shook as energy bolts tore through the metal. Evan ducked behind a table and returned fire. Lyra's skin began glowing again. The lights flickered wildly. I can help, she said. Stay back. Evan shouted, but she didn't listen. She stepped forward, eyes glowing like molten silver. She raised her hand, and the broken cabin door bent outward like soft clay. The attackers screamed as their weapons shorted out, sparks flying in every direction. Evan stared, speechless. The air around her rippled. The machines in the room began floating slightly, his tools, his data pad, even the rifle in his hands vibrated with strange energy. Then everything stopped. Lyra collapsed to her knees, breathing hard. The silver light faded again. Evan rushed to her side. Lyra, are you okay? She nodded weakly. It drains me. He looked at the doorway. The attackers were gone, their ships retreating into the clouds. But he knew this wasn't over. The syndicate wouldn't give up that easily. He helped her onto the couch again. You need rest. I need to stop them, she whispered. They will send more. Evan sat beside her, thinking fast. He had a small freighter parked behind the ridge. If he could get her off the planet, maybe they could hide somewhere the syndicate couldn't reach. But how? Her blood was sending a signal. He asked, Can you shut off that tracker? She hesitated. If I do, my system might fail. I could die. Evan sighed and rubbed his face. We need another way then. Lyra looked at him, eyes full of something like sadness. Why help me, human? You don't know me. He met her gaze. Because no one deserves to be treated like that. Not you. Not anyone. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, slowly, she smiled a small, gentle smile that looked strange on her pale face. Humans are strange, she whispered. You destroy. And protect. Yeah, he said quietly. We're complicated. Outside, thunder rolled again in the distance. The cabin lights dimmed and Evan's scanner beeped suddenly. He looked down. The readings on Lyra's body were changing, her temperature dropping fast, pulse unstable. Hey, stay with me, he said, pressing a heating pad to her arm. It's the signal, she murmured. They're draining my core. They want to disable me remotely. Evan ran to his workbench, pulling out wires, circuits, and a portable power cell. Then I'll give you my power, he said. He connected the cables carefully to her arm. The moment the current flowed, a spark of blue light flashed, and Lyra gasped. Her silver veins brightened again, the color returning to her skin. She looked up at him in shock. You shared your power. He smiled faintly. You needed it more. For a moment, she only stared at him. Then she said softly, I can hide the signal now. But only for a short time. Do it, he said. We'll use that time to run. Lyra closed her eyes. Her body glowed brighter, and the cabin filled with a low hum. The computer screen flashed, transmission disrupted. Evan felt the air pressure shift. Outside, the sky grew calm. He exhaled slowly. You did it. Lyra nodded weakly. They can't find us. For now. He packed a few tools, grabbed food supplies, and went to the small freighter behind the ridge. The ship was old but sturdy, a model from the early Terran colonization days. He had kept it hidden for years, a reminder of the life he once had before everything went wrong. Lyra followed him slowly, still weak but walking. When she looked up at the dawn sky, her eyes filled with wonder. It's beautiful, she said softly. We never saw the sun where I was kept. Evan looked at her and smiled sadly. Then let's make sure you see it again tomorrow. They climbed into the freighter. Evan powered it on, and the engines came alive with a deep, comforting hum. He looked over the controls, old, but functional. Lyra sat in the co-pilot seat, her fingers brushing over the glowing panels. The ship's systems responded instantly, lights adjusting to her touch. It listens to me, she whispered. Evan looked at her curiously. You can control machines? She nodded. I was made for it. I can speak to metal, but it hurts when I do. He frowned. Made for it? She turned her eyes toward the window. I was born in a lab, not a home. They called it Project Voice. They built us to control starships with our minds. But when they learned we could feel, they called us defective. Evan didn't speak for a moment. The engines grew louder as the ship lifted into the morning air. He looked at her and said quietly, "You're not defective, Lyra. You're alive." Her eyes met his, shining like liquid silver. "You shouldn't have saved me, Evan. They will kill you for it." He gave a half smile. "Then they'll have to try really hard." As the freighter rose higher, the valley below disappeared into mist. The world grew smaller under them, but far behind, hidden in the clouds. A black drone watched, recording everything, and on a distant ship somewhere above the planet, a man in dark armor smiled when he saw the feed. "Found you," he said quietly. "The human thinks he can hide her." He turned to his crew. "Prepare the hunters. We move at dawn."